The glass tower of Zenith Pharma glinted against Chicago's skyline, a monument to wealth and innovation in the heart of 2025. Inside, on the 42nd floor, Elena Martinez sat at her corner desk, her fingers dancing across a keyboard as she balanced spreadsheets tracking millions in revenue. At 34, Elena was the kind of accountant who noticed details others missed, discrepancies in numbers, patterns that didn't add up. Her colleagues called her the Bloodhound, half in jest, half in awe. She'd worked at Zenith for 8 years, clawing her way up from an entry-level clerk to a trusted mid-level analyst. Her office, small but tidy, held a single photo. Her with her younger sister Carla, smiling at a family barbecue. It was a reminder of why she worked so hard, to give Carla a better future than their parents had. Elena's days were predictable. Coffee at 7:30 a.m. Reports by noon. Meetings with executives who barely knew her name. But today, March 12, 2025, felt different. As she reviewed quarterly earnings for Zenith's blockbuster drug, Nexapra, a painkiller hailed as a miracle for chronic illness, something caught her eye. A line item buried in a subsidiary's expense report. $2.3 million labeled consulting fees to an obscure firm, Horizon Analytics. No invoices, no contracts, just a number that didn't belong. Elena frowned, her instincts prickling. She opened the database, searching for Horizon Analytics. Nothing. No record, no footprint. Her pulse quickened as she clicked through layers of encrypted files she wasn't supposed to access. Years of loyalty had earned her a few unauthorized passwords, a perk of being indispensable. At 3:15 p.m., the office was quiet. Most employees at a team-building lunch Elena had skipped. Her screen flickered as she opened a restricted folder labeled Nexapra Trial Data, Confidential. The files were dense, filled with clinical trial results, FDA submissions, internal memos. She scanned the first document, her breath catching. The trial data for Nexapra showed side effects. Heart palpitations, liver damage, reported in 18% of patients. Yet the public FDA report claimed only 2%. Elena's hands trembled as she opened another file, a memo from Zenith's CEO, Victor Langston, to the research team. Bury the adverse effects. Nexapra launches on schedule. Her stomach churned. This wasn't a clerical error. This was deliberate. Zenith was selling a drug they knew could kill people. Elena leaned back, her chair creaking in the silence. She thought of her sister Carla, who took Nexapra for fibromyalgia. The bottle sat on Carla's nightstand, a lifeline for her chronic pain. Elena's mind raced. Hundreds of thousands of patients, maybe millions, were taking a drug Zenith knew was dangerous. She could report this to her supervisor, but what then? The chain of command led to Langston, a man whose name inspired fear and reverence. Elena copied the files to a USB drive, her hands steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. She didn't know what she'd do with the evidence yet, but she knew silence wasn't an option. As she slipped the USB into her pocket, the elevator dinged down the hall. Someone was coming. Elena closed the files, her heart pounding, knowing she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. Her supervisor, Greg Harper, stepped into the office, his tie loosened from the lunch. "Elena, you missed a great sushi spread," he said, oblivious to her tension. She forced a smile, her hand brushing the USB in her pocket. "Just catching up on work," she replied, her voice steady but her mind screaming. Harper lingered, chatting about budgets, while Elena's thoughts spiraled. The files on her USB weren't just numbers. They were proof of a cover-up that could ruin lives, maybe even her own sister's. She thought of her parents, immigrants who taught her to do what was right, no matter the cost. But doing right meant risking her job, her safety, maybe everything. As Harper left, Elena stared at her screen, the Zenith logo glowing like a warning. She wasn't just an accountant anymore. She was a witness to a crime, and the weight of that truth pressed down like a storm about to break. Elena couldn't sleep that night. The USB drive sat in her bedside drawer, a ticking bomb. By 6 a.m., she was back at her desk, combing through the files again, her apartment's dim light casting shadows on the walls. The data was worse than she'd feared. Emails between Langston and the head of research, Dr. Evelyn Crane, outlined a plan to suppress Nexapra's side effects. One email read, "The FDA won't dig if the numbers look clean. Pay Horizon to rewrite the data." Horizon Analytics wasn't a consulting firm. It was a front to falsify trial results. Elena's hands shook as she printed the emails, her printer's hum the only sound in her silent apartment. At work, she confided in Jamal Carter, her co-worker and closest friend at Zenith. Jamal, a data analyst with a quick laugh and a knack for coding, leaned over her desk as she whispered about the files. "Elena, this is huge," he said, his eyes wide. If this is true, people are getting hurt, but you're poking a bear. Langston's untouchable. Elena nodded, her jaw tight. I know, but I can't unsee this. Carla's on Nexapra, Jamal. What if she's one of the 18%? Jamal promised to help, pulling data from Zenith's servers to cross-check her findings. Together, they uncovered more. Doctored patient records, bribed regulators, a $10 million slush fund to silence whistleblowers. Elena's sister, Carla, noticed her distraction that weekend over dinner at their favorite diner. You look like you're carrying the world, Carla said, pushing her fries across the table. Elena hesitated, then told her about the files, leaving out Nexapra's name to protect her. Carla, a nurse who'd seen corporate greed up close, was skeptical. You're one person, Elena. Companies like Zenith crush people like you. What if they come after you? Elena stared at her coffee, the question echoing her own fears. If I don't do something, who will? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. By Monday, Elena's paranoia grew. She noticed a black SUV parked across from her apartment, its tinted windows hiding the driver. At work, her access to certain databases was suddenly restricted. A security guard lingered near her desk, his radio crackling with coded messages. Jamal confirmed her suspicions. They're monitoring your logins, Elena. Someone knows you're digging. That night, she found her office trash bin emptied, though she'd shredded nothing. The air felt thick with unseen eyes. Still, she pressed on, downloading more files, including a memo signed by Langston himself, dated January 2025. Nexapra's risks are acceptable collateral. Profits are non-negotiable. The words burned into her memory. Elena's moral dilemma crystallized. Exposing Zenith could cost her everything. Her job, her savings, her safety. She'd seen whistleblowers vilified, their lives dismantled. But staying silent meant betraying Carla, her parents' values, and every patient trusting Nexapra. She spent hours pacing her apartment, weighing the risks. Jamal urged caution, suggesting she report internally first, but Elena knew that would lead to a cover-up. The memo was her smoking gun, proof that Zenith prioritized profit over lives. She hid the USB in a locked safe under her bed, her resolve hardening. She'd find a way to expose the truth, no matter the cost. Confrontation and betrayal. With 500 words, Elena knew she needed help to go public. She contacted Sarah Nguyen, a journalist at the Chicago Tribune, known for exposing corporate fraud. They met in a crowded coffee shop, Elena clutching a burner phone to avoid Zenith's surveillance. Sarah listened, her notepad filling with scribbles as Elena handed over copies of the memo and trial data. This could bring Zenith down, Sarah said, her voice low. But they'll come for you, Elena. Are you ready for that? Elena nodded, though her stomach twisted. People are dying. I don't have a choice. Back at Zenith, the noose tightened. Elena arrived at work to find her computer locked. Her employee ID flagged. Greg Harper called her into his office, his face grim. There's a discrepancy in your accounts, Elena. $50,000 missing. Care to explain? She froze. The accusation was a lie, a setup to discredit her. Before she could respond, security escorted her out, her belongings stuffed into a cardboard box. By noon, an internal email branded her an embezzler, her photo plastered across company servers. Elena's phone buzzed with messages from colleagues, some sympathetic, others accusing. Her reputation was crumbling. That evening, Jamal met her at a park, his face ashen. Elena, I messed up, he stammered. Under pressure from Zenith's legal team, he'd admitted she'd accessed restricted files. They threatened my family, my job. I had no choice. Elena felt the betrayal like a punch, but she saw the fear in his eyes. You could have warned me, she said, her voice breaking. Alone now, she faced a new reality. Zenith was framing her to bury the truth. Her apartment was ransacked that night, the safe untouched but papers scattered. The black SUV was back, idling outside. The next day, Elena met Sarah again, handing over the last of her evidence. Sarah's story was nearly ready, but she warned Elena. Once this goes live, there's no going back. Zenith's lawyers are sharks. Elena's resolve wavered, but she thought of Carla, of patients suffering. She gave Sarah the green light. Hours later, Langston himself called her, his voice smooth as silk. Elena, I know about your little stunt. Come to my office. We can make this go away. A promotion, a payout. Name your price. The offer tempted her for a moment. Security, safety, a way out. But she saw through it. No deal, Victor, she said, hanging up. She'd chosen her path, and there was no turning back. At 6 a.m. on March 20th, 2025, Sarah's story hit the Tribune's front page. Zenith Pharma hid deadly drug risks. Whistleblower reveals. The article, backed by Elena's evidence, went viral, shared 10,000 times by noon. Social media exploded with the Zenith scandal. Patients posting stories of Nexapra's side effects. Protesters gathered outside Zenith's tower, chanting for justice. Elena watched from her apartment, her TV blaring news of FDA investigations and class action lawsuits. But the victory was bitter. Her bank account was frozen, her name smeared as an embezzler. Carla, furious about the danger, stopped speaking to her. "You should have stayed quiet," Carla texted, breaking Elena's heart. Zenith fought back. Langston held a press conference, denying the allegations, calling Elena a disgruntled employee. Their legal team filed defamation suits, painting her as a thief. Elena's inbox filled with threats, some anonymous, some from Zenith's PR firm. She moved to a cheap motel, using cash to avoid tracking. Sarah connected her with a whistleblower protection group, Justice Now, who provided a lawyer, Maria Lopez. Maria prepped Elena for a federal hearing, where she'd testify against Zenith. "You're their worst nightmare," Maria said, "a nobody with the truth." The courtroom was packed, cameras flashing as Elena took the stand. Langston sat across from her, his tailored suit a stark contrast to her thrift store blazer. Zenith's lawyers grilled her, twisting her words, questioning her motives. "Did you fabricate this data for attention?" one asked. Elena held up the memo, her voice steady. "This is Victor Langston's signature. He ordered the cover-up." Gasps rippled through the room. Outside, protesters chanted her name, their signs reading, "Elena speaks for us." The tide was turning. By week's end, Zenith's stock plummeted 40%. The FDA recalled Nexapra, citing catastrophic oversight failures. Langston was arrested on charges of fraud and reckless endangerment, his mugshot plastered across every news outlet. Elena's testimony, backed by Sarah's reporting and public pressure, had cracked Zenith's empire. But the cost was steep. Elena was jobless, her savings drained, her face on every screen as either a hero or a traitor. Still, messages poured in from patients thanking her, saying her truth saved their lives. For the first time, Elena felt the weight of her choice lift. Just a little. 6 months later, Elena stood in a Chicago community center, addressing a crowd of activists and whistleblowers. Zenith was bankrupt, its assets seized to fund victim compensation. Nexapra was off the market, saving countless lives. Elena, once a pariah, was now a symbol of courage. Justice Now had cleared her name, proving the embezzlement charges false. She'd taken a job with them, advocating for corporate accountability. Her office was modest, but the walls held letters from supporters, including one from Carla, who'd apologized, saying, "I'm proud of you, sis." The federal hearing sparked broader change. Congress passed the Martinez Act, named for Elena, mandating stricter drug trial transparency and whistleblower protections. 6 other pharmaceutical companies faced audits, their secrets unraveling. Elena consulted on these cases, her expertise shaping policy. At home, she mentored a young whistleblower, Aisha Khan, who'd exposed fraud at a tech firm. "You'll survive this," Elena told her, passing on the strength she'd found. The community center event marked the 1-year anniversary of Sarah's article. Elena shared her story, her voice steady but emotional. "I was just an accountant who saw something wrong. I lost my job, my safety, even my sister for a while. But the truth was worth it." The crowd erupted in applause, some crying, others nodding. A young girl in the front row, clutching a notebook, said she wanted to be like Elena when she grew up. That moment, more than any award, told Elena she'd done right. Zenith's former employees, like Jamal, faced their own reckonings. Jamal, guilt-ridden, testified against Langston, helping secure his conviction. He and Elena rebuilt their friendship, though trust took time. The industry learned a hard lesson. No company was too big to fall. Elena's legacy wasn't just Zenith's collapse. It was the patients who trusted medicine again. The whistleblowers who found their voice. That one truth, exposed by Elena Martinez, changed an industry and saved lives. Her stand reminds us that courage isn't just for heroes in capes. It's for ordinary people who refuse to stay silent. Have you ever faced a moment where telling the truth cost you something? Maybe a job, a friendship, or just your comfort? Share your story in the comments below. Your experiences build this community, showing others they're not alone in fighting for what's right. If Elena's story moved you, smash that like button to spread this message. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story about everyday people making extraordinary change. What do you think? Did Elena's sacrifice spark the justice Zenith deserved? Or should she have found another way? Let's discuss it respectfully in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that one voice can topple an empire, that truth can't be silenced, no matter how powerful the enemy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one, where we dive into another incredible story of justice served. Keep standing for what's right, because sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the biggest change.